The 2026 World Cup has been going pretty well so far, and almost everyone seems excited about it. Well, apart from the people who have not been allowed to participate. More than any other previous World Cup, this particular tournament has really limited people from participating, whether as players, staff, or fans. And in this video, we want to look at everyone who has fallen victim so far. This is everyone who was banned from the 2026 World Cup and why. We'll start with Thomas Partey. On the 12th of June, the Ghanaian midfielder was denied entry into Canada and for that reason was unable to feature for the Black Stars in their opening game against Panama in Toronto. He appealed the denial, but it was dismissed. Why was he denied? Well, everything was tied to his pending court case. The US granted him entry saying that they were aware of the upcoming trial, but he had not been convicted of any crime yet, which is the reason he could take part in Ghana's subsequent group games. However, Canada's problem was that, apparently in Partey's application, when he was asked if he had ever been charged for any criminal offence in any country, he replied no. Finding out that that was a lie, they denied him entry into the country and refused to listen to his appeal. Ghana will now be hoping that they finish in the side of the bracket that doesn't require them to play any of their knockout games in Canada. Now, while Partey had a problem entering Canada, Embolo's problem was the US. The Switzerland striker was initially denied entry into the US because of a 2023 conviction for making threats. He was punished with a suspended fine for that, but the US still used it as an excuse to deny him entry into the country 3 years later. Anyway, he was later cleared to enter the country and has gone on to be a main protagonist in Switzerland's journey to the knockout rounds of this competition. He scored the nation's opening goal of the tournament, which secured them a point in that game, and then assisted one in the second game to help Switzerland to a 4-1 win, which sealed qualification for the knockout rounds. This brought up the conversation about how much these bans and denials are affecting teams. Imagine Switzerland were never able to resolve Embolo's visa issues, and they had to do without him at the tournament. Their entire campaign might have been looking very different right now. Anyway, there's another player who was initially banned from the World Cup, but later allowed. Do you know who that is? Take a guess in the comments, we'll see if you're right soon. While you're there, if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, go do that right away so you never miss out on our amazing content. Done? Okay, now back to the video. But of course, players haven't been the only victims of these very strict immigration laws. Somali referee Omar Artan was also banned from entering the US ahead of this World Cup, and his case is a very interesting one. The 34-year-old referee was selected to referee at this year's World Cup, and on the 6th of June, he flew from Istanbul to Miami to attend a seminar for match officials ahead of the World Cup. He had his visa, he had his diplomatic passport, he had everything he needed. But on arriving at the Miami International Airport, US Customs and Border Patrol stopped him from entering the country. According to CBP, Artan could not be allowed into the US following inspection due to unspecified vetting concerns, so he was placed on a return flight to Istanbul, but not before he was subjected to an 11-hour immigration interview. News would later come out from an unnamed US official that the referee was alleged to have had association with suspected members of terrorist organizations, which was the real reason he was not allowed into the US. However, this has not been confirmed yet. Questions were raised as to why Artan could not go and perform his officiating duties in Canada and Mexico, but apparently FIFA requires all referees to attend centralized preparations in the US. So if you're unable to enter the US, you can't be a part of the team. He, however, was paid his full fee by FIFA despite not participating in the tournament. In response to all of this, UEFA announced that Artan had been selected to referee the Super Cup game between PSG and Aston Villa in Austria in August, which will make him the first ever African to officiate a game in a UEFA competition. But before Artan's whole debacle, Mehdi Taj, the president of Iran's Football Federation, had already been banned from entering the US since last year. Taj was supposed to be in the US for the World Cup draw in December 2025, but he was denied entry. This led to massive outrage from Iranian football authorities, and there were serious considerations of the nation boycotting the tournament. All of that was later resolved and they went on to participate, but the restrictions didn't stop. Months later, Taj was also banned from entering Canada in April 2026. He was on his way to a FIFA Congress in Vancouver when Canadian authorities turned him away because of his ties to the IRGC. But it doesn't even end there. Reports have stated that several members of the support staff of the Iran national team were denied entry into the US, and initially this also extended to the players. President Trump refused to host the Iran team in the US because of the ongoing conflict with the nation, so they had to be hosted in Mexico even though their group games were scheduled to be held in the US. Eventually, the Iranian team was allowed into the US, but there were heavy restrictions in place. They can't stay a full day in the country. They are required to come in on the day of their game and leave immediately after the match, which of course is not the most convenient arrangement. Anyway, remember we said that there's another player who was banned but later allowed entry? That's Elye Wahi. The 23-year-old had already taken part in Côte d'Ivoire's opening game of the tournament against Ecuador in the US, which ended in a 1-0 victory for the Elephants, but he was denied entry into Canada for their blockbuster clash against Germany. The reason for the denial? He was arrested earlier in the year due to his alleged involvement in a sports fixing scandal. However, measures were taken by the Ivorian Football Federation and he later received the necessary authorization to enter into the country and take part in the game. Finally, Iraq only just returned to the World Cup after a 40-year absence, but it has not been the most fun atmosphere for them. They had a lot of documentation and logistical challenges which have been heavily linked to the suspension of US consular services in Iraq. A lot of Iraqi delegates were either denied entry outright or given a really tough time to get into the country. National team photographer Talal Salah was held for 10 hours at the airport and he had his personal belongings thoroughly checked, including his phone. After everything, he was denied entry into the country. The team's striker Amen Hussein was also held for about 7 hours at the airport and his phone too was thoroughly checked before he was granted access into the country. He would go on to become only the second player to score a goal for Iraq at the World Cup and the first in 40 years. An honourable mention is Woodenski Pierre, the only member of the Haiti World Cup squad who plays in the local league. Interestingly, he was the only one who saw his visa delayed. He wasn't denied, but the visa came so late that he could not participate in the team's pre-tournament warm-up game against New Zealand. On top of all this, visa restrictions and bans in the US meant that fans of Iran, Senegal, Haiti and Côte d'Ivoire could not travel to support their country at the ongoing tournament. All of these have raised questions about what FIFA's role is in ensuring that fans, players and staff are allowed to participate in the World Cup, as it is a global tournament for everyone. The tournament may have been great so far, the stadium's lovely and the goals beautiful, but the fact that a large number of people have not been allowed to take part in this global festival leaves a dark cloud over the 2026 World Cup. Anyway, it is now time to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on these bans and restrictions? Is the US well within their rights to do all of this, or are they ruining the spirit of the game? Get in the comments and talk to us. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also turn on the bell notification so you never miss out on new content. Catch you in the next one. Bye.